it? Can you hear it? Recording on here. So we're good.
Cool. Sure.
All right. So this is take two.
Take two.
Can you believe we were 20 minutes into a very nice conversation?
Yo. Just for
the
recorder not to be recording.
Yeah, the recorder wasn't recording.
Simple audio engineering mistakes.
Yeah, we messed up. But anyway, let's. I guess we'll introduce it again. So
Yes.
This is officially the second episode of. It would be the first one of the terrible. The Terrible Reception podcast. Last time we didn't have a name. Thank you guys so much for helping us out, breaking down the choices that we had. We narrowed it down from like 5 to 7 choices down to like 4. We put it up on Instagram, put a couple polls, and the winner was the Terrible Reception podcast.
Yes.
We love this name. And now we're officially on Spotify. We're also officially on iTunes. So, well, not iTunes. What we call that? Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's like a separate little app for it. But
I think it ended up being like a great name in a sense, Terrible Reception, because it's kind of like Reasonable Doubt. It's kind of like we feel like we've always tried to put out good quality. Maybe the reception hasn't been the best, or like, you know, you're still trying to get through to somebody. So like this is that extension of it could be, you know, it's a play on words in so many different ways. But
also in the descriptions, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, we kind of put a little description together where it's like we're the voice for the people that feel that nobody's listening. So, you know, often we feel like nobody's listening to us.
100.
So, you know, that's kind of where the Terrible Reception name came from. So, you know, so I guess we can jump right into it.
Oh, by the way, excuse the setup for now. We're like still in transition. This will be the official placement of the podcast, kind of where we record out of my house. And we're just waiting on mics, so audio quality is going to be a lot nicer for you guys. You know, next couple of podcasts, everything is going to be set up correctly. But for the meantime, we're still rocking out.
Yes, sir. And, you know, we did get good reception from several people on the YouTube video. Everybody loves what we did on the first one. So, you know, we figured we'd keep it going.
Exactly.
For whoever is listening. And, you know, so just to bounce off of that, on YouTube and Instagram, we got a few questions, I guess, that we can answer on this episode. One in particular was the creative process. Now, before we got into this whole spiel of how we were doing the whole creative process, we answered maybe like 2 or 3 questions already before we realized that the recorder wasn't recording. So forgive us if
that was my fault. 100%.
So, forgive us if it were a little blah, because we feel like we delivered it great the first time. But, you know, the creative process, you know, since we do several things, being that we do music, we do photography, we do videos, you know, we'll start off with the music. So with the music, what I was explaining is that we usually, Rich comes up with the beats most of the time, maybe 95% of the time. It's produced by him. And he'll come at me with a concept. Sometimes he'll have a hook. Sometimes he might just have a melody for a hook. And then, you know, that's kind of where we come together and, you know, we say, I'm kind of the one that's like, okay, maybe that is for us. Maybe that's not for us. This sounds super dope, but, you know, I don't think it's our vibes. You know what I mean?
I was emphasizing on that where I was like, I feel like sometimes I'll be working like day and night on a beat, just trying to perfect it. I'm like, yo, this is going to be it. And then like, I know a lot of producers definitely go through this where you're like, this is the beat. This is it. I work like 2 days on this. You send it to your friend. They're like, yes, all right. And then you're just like mad as hell, right? Versus like the beat that you worked on for like 15 minutes and then you send it to your boy and you're like, yo, this is crazy. I could rap on this all day. And you're just like, come on, man. Like,
the funny thing is I could feel the anger through the text.
Right? You feel that tension?
Yeah.
I thought like, cause like, I always felt like, yo, maybe it's just like I'm a sensitive person, but I feel like when people text, like it's not just monophonic. It's just like it has passion in it. Like you can feel when your friend's angry and texting you. You can tell if they're aggy. You can tell if they're happy or excited. Like that's crazy.
That's the funny thing, because usually I'm busy with like a million things. So when you send me things, you usually have a habit of doing like, oh, here's a beat. Oh, here's the concept. Here's the hook I have. Here's this, and that for like 4 different things. And I'm like in the middle of my day running around, driving everywhere. And, you know, I'll get like 50 text messages at once. And I'm like, how do I reply to all of these individually?
See, like we're similar in so many ways, but we're also like very different. Like the way we live our personal lives and everything else is kind of like my job is like from home. Jay's job is outside in the field. So it's like when I'm texting him, on top of having ADD, my thoughts are like everywhere. I'm like texting him with mad ideas, hoping that he understands every one. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it gets to be a lot on his end trying to like cipher it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, like I was explaining earlier with the whole, when you come at me with some ideas, it's like you have like this full course, like Thanksgiving feast that you've been working on from like the night before, marinating this beat, marinating this snare, putting this drop here specifically for me because you think I'm gonna like it, and then when it comes to me, I'm like in the middle of something and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and that's me just replying like legit, yo, that's dope.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I could feel like in the cartoons when the face got red and the steam would come out the ears. Yeah, I felt that, and you'll be like, okay.
See, it's come with time, with understanding, where like Jay's letting me know like I got it. I'm gonna check more into it later. But like when it first happened, it was kind of like, all right, that's all. I put in all this work, and that's how you feel about it. So it's like it was a miscommunication. So communication is key between you and anybody in your business, on your team. Communication, like let them know this is my way of responding because I'm in this situation. Because that's what I feel like. This is what breaks up groups. This is what. It's those things that add up. They're like, oh, yo, you know, the homie's not appreciative of like what I do. Like, why am I wasting my time? This, and this. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and I guess that's a good segue to discuss the other question we got, and it's the how do we deal with disagreements and compromising when it comes to the creative process, right? Yeah. So a lot of that has to do with trust, right? So, you know, we discussed the music piece, and the music piece we're both pretty into the music, right? So you're more of the technical guy with the instruments that we need to use as far as the pieces for the equipment. And you know, when it comes to like the whole creative with the writing, the melodies, the flows, the everything, the lyrics, I think we're both right there with each other. So it's kind of like a give and take, right? So if I trust that you know more about a certain thing, I just let you do whatever it is that you feel like you know, right? So when it comes to, you know, more of the back end, like the social media, the marketing and stuff like that, if I feel like, you know, maybe this will work 9 times out of 10, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, you know what I mean? But that's, you know, what I do my homework on.
Yeah, you usually know, like, I'm going through with it, like, fine tooth and comb, but I can also, like, the best way to put it, it's like, there's only so many times you're, like, gonna go through your hair where, like, ends up being perfect. And then, like, that third time might, like, ruin it or, like, whatever. And it's, like, that's... Sometimes you stop me before I go overboard because then I'll overmix the track.
Right.
You know, and stuff. So I feel like that's the beauty, I think, in our relationship as musicians, where it's, like, I'm taking it to the plateau, but I'm not jumping overboard because you said, hold up, you know, because then we end up killing a greatness, you know. I mean, what could be something that was great by overdoing it.
Definitely. So, you know, with the photography piece, right? So you are I think the expert on that end, right? So who am I to say, you know, the technical piece of how you take a particular photo is wrong when you've been studying this for years, right? Yeah. So
but they're still open to insight. I think. Of course. I think for me or anybody, it's like you can't just, you know, cut yourself off to like constructive criticism because I might be doing something that I think is right, but it's just not working to my advantage. So it's like walking with a limp after you break your leg. It's like your body learns how to walk incorrectly, and you're hurting yourself more rather than like a physical therapy, learning the right thing and walking correctly within your life. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a lot of time you point that out to me during photo shoots too. Like, do you think we can move this? I could study it to the T, and I've noticed a lot of people in this game, like, they go by the book, but I think the best is like when you actually, I would say, break the rules. Like when you break the rules a little bit, you come across new ways of doing things, you know?
And I think that's kind of where we find our balance, right? When it's like you're super technical, you're always like, the lighting needs to be right here.
All that.
It needs to go off at a certain time with the right specs and stuff like that. And I kind of try to chime in, and I'm like, how can you get past that to be a little more efficient, right?
Exactly.
So it's you know, kind of just like a back and forth, like I always say, you know, and it's just years of communication and years of knowing who we are as people, and years of, you know, understanding and compromising with each other, right? So, you know, when it comes to the compromising piece, you know, we always try to meet in the middle, right?
100.
So, but when it comes to the compromising piece, we kind of trust the other one when they're super adamant about something. It's like, if I don't like a particular melody on a song, and you're like, no, this is it, this is it, and I'm like,
that's where you can't compromise, because sometimes, like, one of us will be so passionate about it and know that, like, this is it, that you can't come to that. You can't always compromise, because if you always compromise, it's like you have a subpar type of product. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you have to stand your ground. I have to stand my ground, or you have to stand your ground to really be like, your gut's intuition is telling you, like, this is it, and you should never go against that. I don't think so. And that's where tension could come, because everybody wants it their way. And it's always hard, especially in a group or more, like, to really, because if not, then you're like, oh, he's what's the word? You know, you're just kind of, you're the only one that's always going to be telling people what to do. You're like hogging. You know, you're like hogging the situation.
And you know, that's pretty much like the whole creative process. And also, now we didn't speak about the video part. So photography, you kind of mostly take the reins, and I kind of just chime in here and there, right? And slowly, as I'm learning more off of you, you trust me more when it comes to like the photography and you know, more of the technical stuff and stuff like that. So when it comes to videos, pretty much the same thing. You know, we film music videos, or we'll film like little snippets for like Instagram or YouTube or whatever,
or even the weddings,
like
where we actually make money for what we do.
The funny thing is that so when it comes to weddings, right, I'm more of the guy that's like, I have to sit here and set myself up with like, okay, this is the point where I'm going to stop, right? If not, I'll burn myself out. When it comes to like, okay, I want to piece this thing together as fast as possible, as efficient as possible, without, you know, dumbing down the quality, right? So with our most recent video, what I took, what's the word I'm looking for? What I took the lead on, right, was actually sitting on that chair and piecing the video together. Because I feel like when it comes to that, that's where your overthinking comes in, right? So where you're overthinking, you're like, okay, I got to process all these video clips. I have to do this. I have to do that. And then you start overthinking, and then you go ahead of yourself. And that's when you're like bouncing back and forth from like the video clip.
I think that's what a lot of people see in our end results of our work, though. It's like they see your logistics, your logical sense of thinking of how people interpret footage, versus like, I have my sprinkles of like you're artistic, but me, I'm like that person that's like, oh man, like, look at this could represent this is this, and that's how I'm looking in depth. So I feel like that's a great balance to have. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have it where you're seeing it from here, I have it where I'm seeing it from here, and then like, once I guess the average person or the audience is like experiencing that, or an artsy person, whatever the case may be, they're taking in all that. And I think it's so rich in flavor with a good balance for whoever's palate, that it's like, it becomes a success.
And I guess to piggyback off that too, it's I'm more of the structure guy, right? So I want to do everything piece by piece. That way I don't miss out on anything, right? And I don't feel like I can be creative until I am structured and I am organized, right? So that's when you'll have an idea and you're like, oh, let's put this clip 10 minutes into the video. I'm like, we're just in the intro of this freaking wedding video.
But this is probably where like our personalities and our outlook crash. Like, this is where we bump heads, because it's like, I have my routine of how I do things, you do too, and it's like, if we don't find that middle space, this is where we get aggravated with each other. And I think like also like we talk about this all the time. We're in music, we're in photography, and we're into video. And mind you, as an artist and clothing. So for us to like, all of these are like artistic, quote unquote, genres of work where it's like most people are struggling. So from a financial aspect too, this is where like, you know, I've gone into mad debt for this stuff. You know what I'm saying? This is the real of it. Like, when you're buying equipment and equivalates to like a new BMW, right? I don't have a car. He has a car. So it's like, I'm paying off equipment each month. You know what I'm saying? Or you're trying to make enough money to stay relevant with equipment, build your arsenal, pay your bills, eat, take care of everything else around. And then it's like, all these things add up, plus whatever other stresses, like again, like we said, that you have in your personal life. It could be family, it could be girlfriends, it could be other friends. And then you have to balance all this at the same time, when you're just like, you know, like for me, it's like, I have to make mad sacrifices to like, sometimes I don't go out all the time. Sometimes, you know, like I can't just like do what I want, because it's like, again, all this shit is mad expensive. We just bought the mics, and literally with the discount came out to like $700, and we didn't even get the preamp for it. And this is like, we almost had like another, you know, you can speak on it, like we had this like scuffle, because it's like, we bought the mics, he thought, all right, we got the mics, we don't need anything else. But then it's like, this other thing came up, and I was like, can you purchase it, and this and that. And like, when you go through all these different things and finances and stuff like that, and we're both like young guys, you know what I'm saying? That's like, life isn't perfect, you know, and everybody should know that. So like, you second guessing yourself, if you're artist, upcoming artist, like there's a lot that goes into this, and you have to take that jump. You're gonna be in debt. If you don't like going into debt, if you're not, you know, this and that, like you have to pay it off slowly, but then you can only work with what you have, and hopefully you can make something out of that. But it does take a lot of equipment, and I think you've been a witness to it over time, that one makes your job easier, more efficient, and the turnaround time to our clients is like,
it's crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that go on.
And that's, I guess, another good segue to, you know, talk about the apparel stuff. So, you know, we sell merch, right? I guess we could call it merch, right? It's just the merchandise that we put our logos on, whatever creative stuff we feel would look dope for somebody else's. And that works as, you know, a little extra money for us to use to reinvest into our whatever endeavors that we're on at the particular moment, right?
You want to break it down for them real quick, what the apparel stands for? So, you guys, you're gonna see a lot. So
yeah, so we've gotten this question several times, and you know, for the most part, anybody that's been following us kind of gets the gist. So the BTTN is short for Benatton. So Benatton is the name of the group. So the BTTN stands for is because the truth navigates. Yeah. So, you know, with us being who we are, we always thought that the truth would get us a lot further than, you know, making stuff up on music.
We never had to play the smoke and mirrors game.
Right. So, you know, we emphasize a lot of the creative stuff that we do on, you know, just being true to ourselves and true to our craft. So, you know, the rest of the logo is a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more Help me out here.
I don't even know what you're looking for.
I don't want to use the word creative because it's like it's whatever. So you interpret it this way, right? So you're looking at the logo. There's a triangle here that a lot of people confuse with Harry Potter. Harry Potter has it the other way around, but I can see why you got that confusion.
Sure.
But it gets a lot of people's attention because once you're walking around, and we have it tattooed on ourselves. So I have it on my arm, and Rich has it on his neck.
Yo.
So whenever people look at it, they're intrigued by that sometimes. And then somebody's like, oh my God, the Illuminati. You guys are part of the Illuminati.
We've had like spiritual people approach us, religious people. We've had people that you would never think approach you about tattoos. Like for some reason, I guess the energy that we put into it reflects,
right.
You know, like even if it is simple lettering, it has 3 dots and a triangle and a circle. Like basically the triangle, we used to be a 3-man group. Now we're a 2-man group, so that was just that triangular representation, trifecta. The circle is for infinity, so we just hope that whatever we do forever, you know, gravitates to other people. Again, the 3 dots were like almost like a crowning again of the 3 of us. And like Jay, he's the one who before it even got popular too, because I know like a lot of people went with like the whole acronym type of thing. Jay had broke it down to simplify it, to put it, you know, he gave me that idea and then I put it together in symbol form. I remember drawing this on like a bank statement. I don't know, it just came to me and we rocked out with this one. And then after that, it was just BTTN to like, you know, say Benatton. But then we're like, okay, how do we expand on that if we want to make it more of a movement in apparel and like so everybody can gravitate towards it. And we made it stand for because the truth navigates. And that's how we feel at the end of the day, amongst all the lies, amongst anything that anybody says about you, if you are true and once the smoke clears, you'll still be standing. And like that's how we feel. This is why this podcast is here. This is why a lot of things are in motion, because we're just staying true to ourselves, and we hope you guys do the same, you know?
And we're more of longevity, right? So,
yeah, we've never been about the quick buck.
Right. So, you know, we see a lot of these artists these days, right? And I'll put air quotes on that. A lot of these artists these days, or influencers, if you want to put it that way, kind of doing this gimmick, right? So they'll do this gimmick for a quick buck. What's the record label? Is it Atlantic that's signing all these like Instagram people and turning them into artists and stuff like that? So a
lot of things have lost value, I feel like, over time. Like whether you're a modeling agency or a music label, like I feel like they gravitate towards the popularity and they're not really gravitating towards talent. And we know that. It's like who can be out there more. It's not more like who can sing better than the other person, who can rap better anymore. We live in that day and age. It's a gimmick. It's it's gimmick driven.
So, and that's one of the reasons why we stick to our guns, right? Because we can easily have like a gimmick where it's like, you know, we'll come up with a stupid concept that we feel may go viral, and then we'll piggyback off that and try to write it off till the wheels fall off. But we're more about like, you know, substance. We feel what we do will live forever. At least that's how I feel. You know, and you know, again, the longevity of things. So
that Latin DJ, I forgot his name, but we were at stage 48. Is that what is it called? We were there for the Latin. We were there. I think
Alex Sensation. I think
Alex. Yeah. It was somebody who mentioned that making a record that's classic, it will go against the test of time. So it's like, now, even though you're in the club and you have nothing but like trap music, still you have like a Biggie song that comes on and everybody knows it, or Michael Jackson song. And like, that's how we want to create music. Like, I think we always said, like, if somebody comes across our music 10 years from now, hopefully somebody uses it for like their own sample of the record. Somebody's influenced by it, rather than something that doesn't carry that essence of inspiration that you know is very cookie cutter, made in the studio, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you're definitely right on that. Like,
so it's like you compare, I guess the biggest artist you would say would maybe be like Drake, right? So compare Drake to somebody like a and I'm not trying to insult anybody, but the Trippie Redd, right? Trippie Redd, he's, I guess, popular these days. Some of the kids that I work with are just like keeping me in the loop with some of these new artists or whatever. So Trippie Redd, you'll compare him to a Drake. Drake has more substance. Whether he reads his own stuff or not, that's not on me. But if you enjoy his music usually carries on for years.
Listen,
right?
Any of your guys' artists that you guys love, being that I've worked in behind the scenes of like a publication company, like, or as a producer, you guys gotta understand, when you're that busy, whether you are a Meek Mill, a Drake, any artist that you enjoy, like, somebody's writing a record for you. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how the come up is for producers and artists. You have to write records for larger artists because that's how you get your check. That's how they stay relevant, and that's how everybody, you're like, how did somebody make all that fire one after the other? Because sometimes it would take a long amount of time, but sometimes you have to have that concentrated. Yeah. So that's like, artistry like that. It's like everybody's writing for each other. Like, don't get it twisted.
So think of it kind of like the Power Rangers, right? So usually, and I'm talking about the old school Power Rangers, right? So the leader was the Red Ranger, right? Yeah. So Jason is Drake. Okay. But Jason would not be anybody without the other pieces. Exactly. Right? So then when they come together with the Megazord, the Megazord wouldn't be the Megazord with all the other pieces, right? But there was always that one head.
That's why you have an entourage. Because even if you were solely the only one writing for you, like, you found all that time to do it, you can't do anything without a 40. You know what I'm saying? You can't do anything without anybody that else is on his team, like stylist, the booker, the accountant, like everybody. All we have is really us at the end of the day. We have other producers, that work with us. Shout out to LX and and then K-Stay. Like, we've just entered a field where, like, we've built a little hype around our name, where it's like we've been honored by other producers doing their thing to approach us and be like, I want to work with you. You know what I'm saying? So it's always a team behind something great. Don't get it twisted.
Speaking of gimmicks, this is a question that I wanted to bring up since it's been popular in the news and on social media and stuff. I'm always rummaging around social media trying to figure out topics that we can discuss. And I wanted to discuss the topic of Mr. 6ix9ine. Oh, Mr. Tekashi. I don't know if you know what's going on with him, but
yeah, I've been reading about it.
He got himself into a little trouble. And I mean, I don't want to be that Debbie Downer, but I kind of saw this coming. And I'm sure a lot of people saw this coming, and I don't want to sound like a hater or anything, but when you put yourself out there like that and you put the so-called gimmick out there, that's kind of where your 15 minutes of fame run out, right? So instead of emphasizing on the music, which he said it himself, he's like, oh, I just play around. I don't even take this thing serious. So why are people like that even in the music industry?
You know what it is? For me, this is where you and I are kind of on the opposite side of the spectrums. I can be a very big, like, conspiracy theory person, and then you're just like, it either is or isn't. For me, I'm thinking in hip-hop, a lot of the reason why this stuff is prevalent is because they still to this day, like, even though still to this day, I feel like they're trying to keep, a lot of different people of color down. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, even if you start in the hood, you're so easily influenced, especially as a kid, just kids in general. So, like, if you keep that gang violence up, you have more people that work for the police force. Police force, more checks are cut. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a balance. Like, I always said it, like, if you open up a tire shop, I feel like sometimes that tire shop is putting, pieces of glass and, like, pins in the street because they need the business. Like, somebody's like, oh, damn, my tire blew out. How did this happen unexpectedly? Oh, shoot, there's a new tire shop that opened. And I feel like that's how it works in business in general. But in the hip hop community, it's kind of like, oh, Bloods and Crips, let's keep that going because that's more work for the police, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I feel like this opened my eyes to the hip hop police too. Like, are they the good guys or the bad guys, in the sense, like, who created, you know, who influenced, because music is influential. Like if you think of Dipset or anything else, like there's a lot of gang members like affiliated with Dipset, but it's also like it gets you hype. You know what I'm saying? So like music motivates you. And then I could remember even for myself, like you start dressing like your favorite hip hop artist. After that, you can like pick up on that persona of like maybe a little more rough around the edges. And like, it's a big influence. There's like nerd rappers and all that. That's brand new to the game, which is great. Like there's an expansion of who's influencing you. But I think it goes so much deeper to like even NWA days of like, this is a lifestyle that people live. Some people are really about it. Other people are gimmicks, like you just said, but like everything is about the dollar and capitalism in America. Mm. So if it's not making money, if it's not creating problems, that it's like, again, my mind's going so many different places. It's like drugs in America. And I'm not just talking about like marijuana and crack. I'm talking about Valium and all these other things you could pick up at CVS or what the doctor prescribes to you, because it's like, oh shoot, this took care of my I don't know, like my panic attacks, but now you're like, oh, I'm bleeding out my ass. And you know what I'm saying? And it's like, now I got to take another pill because I'm bleeding out my ass. And then it's like, oh shoot, you don't see this evil genius behind here making all this money. I'm not saying that everybody is evil behind that market. Like people create medicine, but over here it's always overboard.
Yeah, but basically the idea I'm trying to get across is you own a record label, right? Mm-hmm. You have this guy that's like scorching fire, like a Tekashi, right? Why not? And I think they were trying to do this towards the end, right before he got arrested, is kind of steer him in the direction where he can have more longevity. He can make you more money.
I think it comes down to the person.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, look at Cardi B. Cardi B went the complete opposite route, where she was like this dancer who was hood as hell, you know, and she took the opportunity to start working on her music, and now I think it's Atlantic that has it, right? So Atlantic took her under this umbrella and completely transformed her into this person that a lot of people love. You know what I mean? So Tekashi got involved with the whole Chicago thing and, you know, the violence and, you know, putting on this show basically for people online, which was super dangerous. I was thinking the whole time. So now you got you're knee deep in this now. Yeah. So now you're trying to flip it after XXX got killed, right? So I think that's what his turnaround was. So which is like, this is getting a little too violent. You know,
but I feel like he actually like, you know, like I feel like he had an intellect that was like superior to his actions. You know what I'm saying? I felt like he had the most room to grow as an artist and a person, and like he probably was dealing with depression, anger, and all that through his actions. Like I wasn't a fan of like him beating on like women and going to jail and doing all this extra stuff. But like for me, I felt like his intellect could have got him really far, and like he's the one who ends up dead. But same thing for Tekashi. Like if you're in jail for the rest of your life, you might as well be dead, because there's no life to that. There's no life to. I can't even imagine like us being at 21 and then, you know, even if he's going to jail till he was 50, say he was getting like 30 years. That's a long ass time. Like
he's done after that.
Which is done, period. You know what I'm saying? Like you come back out in this world and you're lost. And like if people are already like ratting you out now just to make sure they're good at like, I think that's what it is. It's this quick dollar. It's this get rich quick scheme.
Which is funny because I think that bit the record label in the ass, right? So they have this quick get rich quick scheme that now you have to pay for legal stuff, right? You have to pay for his lawyer. You have to pay for this. You have to pay for that. He said on the Breakfast Club that he paid over $500,000 in legal fees.
Imagine what you could do with that money, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I feel like he was trying to, or whoever is behind him was trying to flip that so that he can have more longevity.
I mean,
but it was a little too late at that point.
It doesn't matter who you are. You could be Will Smith. And like Will Smith in the eye to everybody is a cool dude, right? He's inspirational. He gets sued all the time. Mm-hmm. He gets sued all the time. So it's like,
but these legal fees are not from being sued. It's from shootouts.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's made for him. But you're always stuff. I feel like once you are like, you know, famous to that degree, you're always gonna have to deal with something. Somebody's gonna come at you. Somebody's gonna come. You know, skeletons are gonna come out the closet, and that's the part that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, which is fine. I mean, you being, and that's where you have to keep. You have to have no skeletons in the closet when it comes to something that crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it was too late for him. I think with the turnaround, or the decision to make that turnaround was a little too late for him, because I feel like he had a lot of potential. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of his music, but everybody.
I just think it's
for whatever reason.
The thing is, if you do what you do, you know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? If you're 21. It's 21 or your 20s is like a weird age, because it's like, you know what you're doing, but you're also figuring yourself out. So it's like, if you can have sex, if you can smoke and all this stuff, you know what you're doing. But at the same time, like, you're figuring yourself out as a person. Me, from being like 18 to 21, different people. 21 to 24, different people. 21 to 28, I was different.
Still growing, still maturing.
Still maturing. So I think, like, what my father always told me, he's like, make sure you learn your lesson, and make sure it's a lesson you can come back from. You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you come back with, you know, less of an arm, you know what I'm saying, and you can't learn from it, to, you know, that's drastic. Something you can't come back from is the worst.
Yeah.
Is the worst.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, we could talk about this topic all day.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, but
I think it's unfortunate, because I don't know, like, we don't live amongst them. We don't know what the truth is. We don't know what the lies are. So, I mean, he has to live with it. If he knows that he did those things, he knows what he did. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I always tell all the kids I work with, don't ever put yourself in a position where somebody can possibly lie on you, and then you're screwed.
Because if you're a drug dealer turned musician, there's a lot of potential for you. But at the same time, if you're trying to wash your drug money, or you're racketeering through the music, and just, you know, like, oh yeah, this is all good, this is how we got on, this is, nah. Like, you're going to have problems.
Yeah, man. So, you know, good luck to him. It doesn't look good for him, but good luck to him. But, you know, back to us.
Crazy.
I was asked by someone, I forget where, but they asked, how did we meet?
How do we meet? Okay. So
I always say that the way we met was kind of this 4-letter word, fate, you know, and things happen for a reason. And, you know, this in particular made me like a firm believer in that, you know, because when I started getting into music maybe my early teens, as far as listening to hip hop music. Like I mentioned in the last podcast, I got into like the English music a little later.
Yeah.
Because like I mentioned, my dad didn't like me listening to like anything with curses or, you know, stuff like that. So with that being said, once I got into like maybe 7th or 8th grade, I started listening more to hip hop music. And then that transitioned into high school. Now I went from New York to Jersey, right? Yeah. So I moved from New York to Jersey, and in Jersey I was more into like, because I was a loner for the first, I would say maybe the first half of the school year, because I was still fairly new, you know, this is a completely different world for me.
Trust me, I know that feeling. I moved a lot.
Super tough transition. So going from New York to Jersey, where I was like in this bubble in New York where all I saw was Dominicans, maybe Puerto Rican sprinkled here and there, maybe a white person here, a white person there. I knew nothing but that. So then when you take me out of that environment and put me into a high school where there's like all these different kinds of people, and I'm like, and Clifton High School was pretty diverse when it comes to like, you know, races and ethnicities and stuff. So once I started exposing myself more to other kinds of music, and, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I was a pretty big loner. Yeah. So the way I kind of use as an outlet was writing. So I would write poetry. I would write little things here and there in my notepad. Whenever I'm bored in class, I kind of just wander off and doodle here and there, maybe write a couple things and stuff. So that's kind of how I started with the writing. And then maybe like my sophomore, junior year, I started writing like these little, because I was a really good friend with somebody else who would write little, I wouldn't say little battle raps, but in between, in classes, we would write little things.
Do I know this person?
No, you don't.
Oh, okay.
So I would write little things. We would write like little, and at the time I didn't know the format of like 16 bars, 32 bars or whatever, 8 bars. Yeah. And I would just write basically like a full sheet of paper, right? You take a loose leaf paper, just fill it up with like...
So is this a fun fact where like Jay started off as a battle rapper?
Oh, yeah, kind of. But at the time I wasn't like confident enough to like recite and stuff like that. Kind of like, you hear a lot of the people like in the lunchroom, like battle rapping and stuff like that. I never did any of that. But with the writing, I would write things in a particular class, maybe like algebra or something. If I get bored or finish my work, I would write something. And our goal was to write a whole sheet of like rhymes towards that person, like either insulting them or making fun of them or whatever. So then we would exchange it at lunchtime. So then when we would get to lunchtime, we would exchange and we would read each other's things.
Jay's basically telling you guys, don't come at me. I will wreck you in a battle. I've written pages.
The funny thing is, at the time, I was like that guy that was just like going off of what I knew, right? So I would listen to all these, I guess you would call thug hip hop music, gangster rap and stuff like that. So I would write all these ridiculous things like shoot you in the face, blah blah blah, and all this crazy stuff. That if any of the teachers came across it, I probably would have gotten expelled or suspended or something. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door with writing and stuff like that. So the reason I think you asked is because I was in a class with, when I was in New York, I was in a class with a mutual friend of ours.
Yes.
So when I left in 8th grade, we lost contact. And then a couple years later, when MySpace was still around, some guy adds me on MySpace. I'm like, yo, who the hell is this guy? He's like sending me messages and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know this guy. And when I first met him, he had like this baby face. Yeah. So then in these photos, he has like a full beard, he has long hair, braids, and I'm like, yo, I don't know who this guy is. And then at the time on MySpace, you don't really put your official name, you put like a screen name or something like that. So I'm still trying to decipher who the hell this guy is. And then a little later, he's like, oh, I'm such and such. Yeah. And, we reconnected. And
mind you, I went to high school with this guy.
Yeah.
So, I met this guy sophomore year because I just moved again from another town. And I met him. And I just learned Fruity Loops. And basically, I was recording. I got into hip-hop. I got into writing. I was on the same path as you. Started writing all that. Me and a homie down the street. Terrence, I'm gonna just say names. So Terrence down the street, he actually taught me Fruity Loops. He found the program. He's like, yo, I've been messing with it. And then I got into that. I had the little setup from the house. That's where we won't put your government out. That's where Stat came around, and he was recording with me, and he's like, yo, I have my boy that I used to go to school with in New York. And I was like, he's a poet, but he's trying to put down raps. And I was like, that's interesting, that's dope. So mine, coming out of high school, graduated, I went to Europe to visit my father that summer. I was like, I wanted to be out of Jersey. I just wanted some time to reflect. And this is the AOL days. This is the AOL days where this guy hits me up on AOL. He was I don't know, DominicanPapi176866xoxo. You know what I'm saying? So he hit me up and he's like, yo, what's good, man? My name is Jay. I'm Stats Boy, and I'm trying to get into recording. I heard that you have a setup, that you do the rap thing too. And this is the funniest part, because he's like, yo, this whole summer I've been making t-shirts, and he's like, I know I don't know you, but I know your rap name, so I made you this T-shirt.
Yeah, that was so cool.
So he made me this parlay, like microphone, like it was in script. Parlay had a French flag on it, and like the Y went into a microphone. It was dope as hell. Custom made pieces, so you could tell Jay was already on the path to making his own apparel.
Yeah, that was like a 4X white tee too. That was so funny.
But it's funny how you see these things, like they go from these little ideas to like bigger things over time. You know what I'm saying? So like there was already a premonition. Who knew like 6 years, 7 years down the line, we would literally have our own apparel. We would be selling. This is crazy. This is why I'm saying, like, never belittle what you think is dope. You know what I'm saying? Never belittle your dreams, your ideas. Don't be like nervous about it. Just go with it. You know what I'm saying? The more self-doubt is like fog up here. It creates fog. Like confidence blows the fog away. And then you have a clear mindset to focus. And I think that's the most important. So that's basically how we connected. Like it was through,
long story short, it was through a mutual friend, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, then we started doing music. He started teaching me the ropes of as far as, you know, what 16 bars are. We kind of just came along and taught each other certain things, right? So, you know, throughout the years, I wasn't super confident with the voice that I had. I wasn't super confident with the flows that I came up with and stuff like that. And that usually comes with time and with people around your circle that want you to be better.
Yeah.
And strive to make you better.
We could have yes man you away and be like, absolutely. Yeah, it's good, it's dope, it's dope.
And I could have just plateaued at the bottom. You know what I mean? If you heard, maybe we could come. I think somebody might have like some old recordings.
Oh, yeah,
maybe we could play some stuff so you guys can see how awful we were.
That'd be super interesting.
Yeah, we used to record the songs right in the basement with the most basic setup, right? And we used to throw it on MySpace right then and there, and we're like, yo, this is the best thing ever. Oh my god, yo, we're gonna get so many plays, blah blah blah. And then, you know, looking back at it, we were like, ooh.
The first song he ever recorded, I know it makes him cringe. It was
I know exactly.
It was by Riding Hot. He called it JL's Riding Hot. That's what we went by, JL's.
I hated that name too. Yeah. It was such an awful name, but
this is where Jay would like match his fitted to his sneakers. You know, both of us had the triple XL t-shirts.
That was back in the day. Everybody wanted to match everything with everything.
This was like that's why I mentioned Dipset era. Like we, you know, guys got clowned on all the time. Cameron started wearing pink, then guys wore pink. And then, like, you know, we had all the bagginess. We had Rockaware leathers. We had the Gerbo jeans, the Tims, everything you could imagine. Like, Fubu.
The Fat Alberts, remember those?
Oh, my God. Or Lot 29 with the Looney Tunes characters.
We are dating ourselves.
I know.
But that's kind of how we met. So, you know, we've known each other for quite some time. So, I also wanted to touch upon one thing that somebody asked me. Now, I'm going to go into my Instagram real quick. So if you have any questions you wanted to ask while I look this up, go right ahead.
Yeah, basically, this time around, I wanted to ask you, like, what excites you? What really gets you hype in this life? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe outside of music, maybe outside of what we do, like, that's already a given. But like what really like hypes you? Like
what hypes me up?
Yeah, like what gives you great energy? Like what makes you feel good like when you do something? Like what is something you look forward to? Like, again, outside of like music and all, like, you know, your creative realm.
I guess just like the simple things, man. I just like having downtime for myself. That hypes me up.
So reading books hypes Jason.
I don't have the concentration to read a book, which is kind of sad, but I listen to a lot of stuff. I listen to podcasts a lot.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know. It all depends. I mean, the simple things as far as like, if I have a day set up, right? It's going to sound so stupid, but I have this day set up where I'm like, I got to do this at this time. And then once I'm done there, I got to go here. Because that's what most of my day looks like. It's like from a particular time slot, let's say I wake up at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, and then I have to get up. I have to take care of paperwork. I have to, make sure the Instagram's tight. Got to make sure, check in on a couple things. So I have like a hour and a half, 2 hour window where I'm doing something. And then once I'm done with those 2 hours, I have to run to the gym, get, a workout in between like an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on how much time I have that day. And then once I'm done there, I got to go home, eat, shower. So, just to make it a long story short, is if I'm doing this whole long day and I do everything within the time allotted for those particular things, that hypes me up.
Okay.
As far as, and for those that don't know, I work with kids. A lot of kids with behavioral that or, mental health concerns and stuff. So, once I have like a success story, that's hypes me up, because some of these kids come from like a really bad, home, or really bad situations where it's like, a person that comes into the home a complete stranger basically, and you work with them for, 6 months to a year, and then you see this person go from this kid that's going down the worst path ever, and then you come in and do your best to try to flip that around with the smallest little things, maybe going out to, I don't know, Wendy's and grab like a chicken nugget or something, or like ice cream, or, just going to the park and shooting around for a little bit. And once you see that transformation, when this kid is like feeling hopeless to, I can do this, that hypes me up. That super hypes me up. So
you can turn Tekashi 6ix9ine into Black Thoughts.
It's funny. I was talking to, who was it? Somebody hit me up on IG, and because I was talking about Tekashi the other day, and that's what inspired this question earlier. And they were like something along the lines of, "Do you think you could turn this person around?" And I'm like, I want nothing to do with that. It's a little too late for him. But, I work more with like the younger kids, like, preteens or kids between like the ages.
Well, personally, I know you like movies. He also says he's a chicken parm aficionado, if you've checked his social media.
I mean, when it comes to that,
travel.
Yeah. When it comes to that, I love traveling. So whenever I can scrap up some cash, and, I'm actually have a flight tonight where I'm going to be gone for the weekend just to get away for a little bit. But whenever I could scrap up some cash together to put together for a flight, even for like 3 to 4 days, that hypes me up. When I'm watching movies or TV shows, when, now that we're into like the whole videography and, cinematography and photography and stuff like that. Like I even showed you a clip from, what was it? One of the TV shows, Marvel, probably like Iron Fist or something like that, when there was like this particular angle where they shot like this particular scene, and I'm like, yo, this was super fucking dope. You need to check this out. The way they did it, it could just go over, the average movie,
the person's
but when somebody's like,
Angry Train.
Oh, Angry Train, now we're in. So, stuff like that when it comes to seeing something, and when it comes to movies, I like reading ahead of things. So I'm like looking into the production of the movie, I'm looking at rumors, I'm looking at all this. So when you get a product that you have been expecting or it surpasses your expectations, that hypes me up. So so quite a bit of things hype me up. You?
Me? I think, like, I don't know, this is probably like a geeky side of me, but when I know I have something coming in the mail from Amazon or B&H Photo, the anticipation between that moment, it's like, I think that's the beauty of like what I love to do. It feels like Christmas is every day, because it's like sometimes you have these little things that are coming your way that like, yo, it's gonna make life so much better. And like, as much as like, again, like, I'm a gearhead, but at the same time, I love to learn. Even before I get it in the mail, I love to learn about what tools I'm using. I like to learn how to use it like the back of my hand. So I'm not just like, here it is, I have it to have it. It's usually like a very planned out type of, strategic plan of why I bought this, how it's going to make our business better, and all that. That hypes me up. I love travel. I really do. I don't get to do it enough. Again, a lot of my finances go back into this stuff, but when I do, man, like I love to expand my palate with food, people, you know, different cultures. Like it's always nice to see how, you know, somebody's living and experiencing life on their end, hopefully in a positive manner. I mean, being an adult, like, yo, like food all the time. Food hypes me up. When I know lunchtime is coming and I'm hungry and I have a moment to myself, I'm like, yo, this is it. This is the best part of the day. So,
when you mentioned the whole Amazon thing, have you ever seen Scott Pilgrim vs. the World?
One of my favorite movies.
I always make like movie references, but there's this one scene where he orders something online and he closes his laptop and he immediately sits in front of the door.
Oh, wow.
And then once he sits down on the door, you hear the doorbell ring, ding, ding, and then he opens the doors, the package he's been waiting for.
Now that's how I feel though, you know, I'm still like a little kid, like looking out for the UPS or FedEx guy. I'm like, yo, he's here. Or when you see that box, when you open the door and that box is sitting there, you're like, yeah, Santa's been here. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of vibe.
It's so funny because I don't order much online, but I did the other day for a pair of sneakers, and I've been waiting for it. And I never wait for anything. I always see packages from people in my house that order stuff, and I order these sneakers, and then when I get home, I see the box, and it's like glowing. It has this aura. I'm like, oh, like yes, it's here. So
I guess like that's the most materialistic part of me outside of fashion. I have to say I love fashion, but like those two things always get me super, super, super hyped.
So I wanted to talk about one more thing before we head out, and I mean we could dedicate a whole episode on something like this. But one comment in particular I saw on Instagram that somebody put out there, and I don't know if she feels comfortable with me putting her name out there, but I'll just read it, and I won't put her name out there just yet, and I'll make sure that it's okay with her. But
another thing, right before you say that, guys, we want to hear your responses to this podcast. It's going to be a better way. Again, we're always out there with our thoughts. We get onto one topic. You see it with me all the time. We start delving into other things. The more questions you guys have, the more we can specifically dive into, you know, some of the stuff. We also have the questions about gear. I know people ask.
Dedicate an episode.
So we're going to dedicate, you know, a lot of stuff to that. Just keep the questions coming so we can better organize our podcast for you guys. Right now, it's just like feeling each other out. So.
Yeah. And we don't want to sound like we're all over the place either. We're trying to build the structure. So, you know, if we didn't get to your question, please ask us again, and I'll make sure to get back to you, and I'll let you know if we're going to do it on the next episode or not. But when it comes to like the gear, like you mentioned, we're going to dedicate a whole episode to breaking down the music videos and all the gear that we use to put that video together. So we haven't forgotten about you. So, you know, this question is from Carousel Queen _princess on Instagram.
Okay.
She's been following us for quite a bit, and I do keep up with the Instagram, and so I see all these names come up here and there. So I have conversations with certain people, and she's a sweet lady, sweet girl. She has a daughter as well.
Okay.
Who loves our music. So she wrote to us, I would like you guys to talk about anxiety.
Okay.
I have public anxiety that I feel completely weird / different around every single person.
Okay.
And I am not sure how to overcome it. It's so bad, I don't even want to be around, I think these doctors. I don't want to be around doctors, so it makes it super hard to get better.
Gotcha.
Any advice for me? Oh, by the way, I know I say this a whole lot, but I just love you both so much.
Hey, we love you too.
So, you know, being that I work, I guess I'll jump into this. Being that I work with kids that have behavioral issues and mental health concerns and stuff, I run across a lot of people with anxiety, right? I feel like everybody has a certain level of anxiety in them, and you know, a lot of things factor into how bad or how bad it is, you know, or how bad it could get. So, you know, just working with these kind of kids and but, you know, associating myself with certain people with certain levels of anxiety, you learn how to help them cope with it, right? So when it comes to this person in particular, what I would say is, you know, just try stepping out of your comfort zone. right? So you have this social anxiety where you don't feel comfortable around doctors. Okay, I get it. I hate dentists, but I got to get my teeth clean, right? So you kind of just have to weigh out whether, and you have to make this determination on yourself. Do you want to get better? Once you make that determination, yes, I want to get better, you have to take those certain steps to get better, right? So if you don't feel comfortable seeing a doctor, maybe start off with like a support group, maybe, where you can, and you can Google this, wherever you live, you could just Google, support groups for anxiety or support groups for depression, support groups for grief, where you can kind of get your feet wet as far as, seeking treatment, where you can, go in there and kind of just see all these other people going through the same things, maybe worse, maybe less, but, you could pick and choose what you want to take out of those situations, right? So you go into this group, and I've seen these kind of groups where you kind of just go in there. You don't have to talk. You kind of just sit there, let them know, hey, I don't feel comfortable speaking. I kind of just want to sit here. And you kind of just sit there, listen to these stories. You can take what you want from these stories, and you can see that you're not alone, right? And that's what I feel a lot of people with anxiety have to deal with the fact that they feel like they're just crazy, right? Because they feel a certain way. I feel like overthinking certain things.
I feel like anxiety stems from uncertainty, and also not having control over a certain situation. So, like when you're unsure, if you're if you're approaching somebody you don't know and you're uncertain to what they think of you, and that's making you anxious, and you feel like you don't have control in the conversation. Sometimes it's those things that you basically just want to build. Like, I feel like anxiety stems from social brain structures and social structures that you might have to work on as a person. Also, I would say, because again, I deal with a lot of anxiety. You also want to deal with, your diet. Your diet is super important. If you get low blood sugar, and your anxiety can spike. If you have too much caffeine, your anxiety can spike. If you drink coffee or too much tea throughout the day, you're going to feel like that hollow feeling, like you're like, oh my God, what's going on around me? Your heart's gonna race. That's gonna spike your anxiety. You might, if you are going the natural way of smoking marijuana, you might be smoking the wrong marijuana that spikes your anxiety. You got to find what works with your chemistry. Stay off pills sometimes, because that might just calm it for the time being, but it's also going to make it even worse when it does come back. I think with anxiety, I remember I wasn't prepared for social speaking in my social studies class, like back in high school. And I had like a panic attack. And I could feel like the panic attack came from an overwhelming feeling of anxiety. I wasn't prepared. Nothing I could do made me feel right. And then it took me a while to feel comfortable, even to this point, talking in front of a camera or hitting a stage. But it's like I found something I love, and you have to do the same thing. You have to talk to a crowd. So it's like, if you can find an answer to your anxiety by like kind of like tricking your brain, think about, I do love conversations with people, and then you'll find that anxiety or like kind of drift away, tip off. So again, watch what you're eating, reprogram how you see things, because if you're thinking that everybody is out to get you, or everybody thinks you're ugly or this or that, that's gonna spike the anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Anxiety most of the time you're believing the lies in your head.
Yeah.
So
and I was gonna mention something about that, and it's like you got to reprogram your brain to think positively. And it's tough to think positively when you're going through rough situations, right? Yeah. So,
or if you come from a household that's like always making you second guess, you know.
So a perfect way to word it is kind of like, let's say you have an event to go to, right? You're not the most social person. You got an event to go to. The anxiety is going to tell you, oh, I'm going to have an awful time, or something bad's going to happen. So what I try to tell people is kind of just reprogram your brain to think, but what if this is going to be the best time of your life?
Yeah.
And
I think it's also by social standards, because it's like the person that's outgoing is usually seen in such a great light. If you are literally introverted by nature, like you could be introverted, you know, like to a certain extent. Like it's always, if somebody approaches you at a party, it's fine. You don't always have to be that outgoing person to enjoy yourself.
Right.
And it's not that, you know, you're less of a person because you might be introverted, stuff like that, or if you're not comfortable with people you don't know off the bat. These are actually normal things. Like, it takes time to warm up to people. We live in a crazy world. You never know who you're talking to. Right. You never know who's trying to get stuff from you, but you can't delve that deeply because you'll drive yourself nuts. Again, I do it with myself, overthinking all the time. So,
yeah, so, you know, just going back to this particular person, I guess what I would recommend is maybe going to a social, not a social group, but like a support group of some kind. Start off slow. Take baby steps. Set certain goals.
What would you say to a person that doesn't want, like, that doesn't feel like that's an answer, like a social group?
So the best way to do that, well, she said in particular she has problems with public anxiety, which I'm assuming is social anxiety.
Gotcha.
Right? So being around other people, being in crowds, being around people you don't know, right? So what I would say is take baby steps. I always tell people set realistic goals. Okay. Like the main goal is, I don't know what you want to do, is like perform in front of a big crowd. I don't know. But you have to take baby steps, right? You have to pass. So you have a little ring, right? That's your comfort zone. You have to slowly step out of that comfort zone in order to build this other ring, right? So once you feel comfortable there, you take another step. So what I would say is you have to expose yourself to certain things that you don't feel comfortable doing until it feels comfortable for you.
Exactly.
And if the anxiety is to the point where you have to see a doctor, that's when I would go the what's the route I was going to say? Just like the support group route. Yeah. Because it's not a doctor. It's usually ran by somebody that's like I don't know, maybe a psychologist or, I don't know, like a therapist of some kind. And, you know, those things are built for comfort. Yeah. Where you don't have to speak. You kind of just go there, kind of vent. And when you do feel comfortable, take that next step and maybe speak up. Say a couple things. Introduce yourself, right? So that is one of the realistic goals you can set. Just make it to one of these things.
Yeah, like, because I feel with anxiety, it's like you're going overboard with something that is okay to feel. So it's, you know, you can be cautious in this, but most of the time anxiety is taking it to the extreme. So, you know, you almost feel worse when a doctor is telling you like, oh, I think you should do this or take this because you have anxiety. It's like, it really starts with you. The doctor can't do much for you but prescribe like a quick remedy versus, you know, you actually, again, watching yourself, taking balance in your life. Again, that's physically and emotionally. And it's one of those situations where you, like Jay said, start small. Like if you actually, it's got to be sincere too. If you find interest or you find the person at your corner store or your job like actually really nice and welcoming, start little conversations. Start with that. And then you'll prove to yourself that your gut, your instinct is actually right, that this is a good person, that is a bad person. And you're going to build your confidence. And building your confidence and your awareness of your surroundings will almost diminish the anxiety. Like sometimes you'll always have anxiety because it's a strength and a weakness. It's letting you know about your surroundings, but too much to an extreme where you have to back it up and be like, this is a good person, this is a bad person. If you get that negative vibe, if somebody's like, oh my God, like what's on their face? They're so ugly. And then it's like, okay, that person thinks I'm ugly. Maybe I shouldn't be your friend. Versus somebody's like, hey, you know, Janet, how are you? And they give you a hug and they're sincerely happy to see you. Start conversations with that person. That person is going to be good for your life. So.
And I guess to feed off that as well, if you don't feel comfortable in a support group, try something that you're interested in. I don't know if you're interested in like, I don't know, geeky comic book stuff. Find like a little group that people get together and read comic books together, or
go to a cafe group for some quick poetry.
Go to a cafe, you know. But you have to kind of expose yourself to these certain things you don't feel comfortable doing until you do feel comfortable. And you know, last case scenario would be seeing a doctor and maybe exploring the idea of medication, but that's usually the last resort, where it gets to the point where you really can't, like, you're debilitated and you are like a potato in your bed and you can't move or anything like that.
It's like winter. If you stay in your house and it's warm all year and you're comfortable with that, for sure outside's going to feel so cold. If you're outside and you're moving more, you adapt. So it's all about adaptation.
And another thing, because I suffer from, and looking back at it, I think I suffered from social anxiety when I was younger, because I hated being the center of attention, even to the point where I've only told one person this story, maybe two, where I would be like maybe 7 or 8 years old at my birthday party, and we had a piñata at my birthday party, and I had to be the one like bash the piñata or pull the string, and I hated being that person to the point where I would just like freeze.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
So, you know, it's just it comes along with like time. It comes with, you know, again, exposing yourself to it, because I went from that person that didn't want to bust a piñata open to the person that's out in front of hundreds of people performing a song.
Yeah.
That I'm messing up a song, and that's another anxiety on top of itself, because, you know, whether we've done this 100 times or 2 times, you still have that anxiety of, damn, am I gonna mess up? But, you know, you have to get past that fear, because your body naturally wants to protect you from messing up or protect you from these fears, right? So you just have to tell your body. And another thing I practice, you know, I hate jumping from topic to topic, but practicing the art of saying yes, right?
Yes.
So I found myself during a certain period of my time saying, no, if I go to that place, I'm going to have an awful time. Or, no, if I take this trip, I'm going to be broke for the rest of my life.
That's your gut's intuition really telling you what it is, you know?
And, you know, working on, you know, even with you, when you're like, oh, we have to spend this much money on this thing. And I'm like, no, I don't think we should do it. But then when I open myself up to saying yes, obviously you don't say yes to like awful things like, hey, let's jump off this cliff with no parachute and splat on the ground or something.
Perfect.
You have to pick and choose what you say yes to, obviously. Yeah. But, you know, I feel it's kind of like the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey, where he took it a little extreme, but it's kind of like that, where you have to pick and choose, and your brain wants to tell you no, but try saying, let me try it, see what happens. You know, and it comes with like food. I try everything I could possibly try, because I always tell myself, I don't know if this is going to be my best meal of my whole life. You know what I mean? So if you fear failure, you're never going to go anywhere. Anxiety,
it's like, again, it's seen in a negative context. We feel like it's negative. It's just because your anxiety is to the extreme. It's the same thing, like you're an X-Men. Cyclops had to find something to concentrate that beam of light that comes out of his eyes, because it was too much. He would kill everybody around him. What you can do with your anxiety, if you concentrate it, you can have feelers. You can have all this, but just concentrate it. So you have a gift in a sense. Everybody, like, people see these as weaknesses and all that. It's just because it's too much. It's overwhelming. You got to learn how to control it. If you learn how to control these things of sensitivities or sensories, you're going to be extra good.
And that's all it is, because I don't think anxiety goes anywhere. No. It's just your way of handling it and kind of just like suppressing this anxiety, because I feel like anxiety is just, and again, we're not therapists, we're not psychologists or anything like that. We're just, you know, just from our experiences, it's your body's natural reaction to a certain situation. So the way I feel the most important thing is just trying to find the cause of the anxiety.
It's like an adrenaline rush. Right. Adrenaline rush doesn't feel all that great either, because sometimes you can't feel things, or like you're so in the moment that it just, everything surpasses you. But again, instinctively, it's a way that our body adapts to a situation. If you got to run for your life, adrenaline rush, because you need that extra energy to survive a situation.
It's the fight or flight.
Exactly.
So, you know, I think that's super important, because obviously you can't resolve something if you don't know the root of where this anxiety is coming from, or what's triggering this anxiety. Because once you find the triggers, once you find the cause, you're able to address these issues or avoid these triggers, or figure out a way where you can handle these, you know, feelings that you get once this anxiety flares up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I guess, long story short on this one, because we can ramble all day about this, but, you know, find the cause, find your triggers, try to suppress these feelings either by exposing yourself to these little things that make you feel uncomfortable, just little by little, or finding a social setting that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah. And see, it's like people also say suppress is a negative context, but it's like this is one of those times where you need suppression. You need to suppress those feelings. So
yeah, man, that's it.
Perspective.
That's it, man.
Why is Siri going off out of nowhere? I don't get that.
So, this episode went a little longer than expected, but I think we had a really good conversation on this one.
100%.
But, continue to send us questions. Continue to send us comments on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, if you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you rate, leave a comment on I was confused, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us on Spotify. We do have music out there. Check out the project, Second Nature. We still sell the merch, and you do know that the money we get from the merch, we reinvest in all this crazy expensive stuff to get you more content, to get you more product. And I want to thank you guys again for tuning in.
As always,
I love doing
subscribe, comment.
Like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Like us on Spotify. What else do you do? Follow us on Instagram if you don't already. Benatton Music. I think that's everything, right?
Yeah. And then you guys are definitely going to hear a difference in audio quality for next time.
Yeah, man. So hopefully we can drown out more of this outside noise and the angry train. Hopefully you won't hear it as much.
Yeah. It'll be a lot more pleasing to your eyes. Yeah, I mean, your ears. Oh my
whipping in the kitchen or something. So,
exactly.
Again, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Keep sending us stuff. Keep sending us your feedback, whether positive or negative. Let us know where we can improve. If we didn't get to your questions now, we'll get to them a little later. Make sure you keep resending those questions if we didn't address it at this one.
We're also gonna get to that gear talk. I think we should label it Secret Stash, and Secret Stash is gonna let you into everything that we use. So if you can buy it, you can do whatever we do. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to hide anything. We're going to let you in 100%. The recipe is here.
Yeah, man. We'll fill you in more on our creative. Because I know a lot of people ask us about the creative process. So we'll break down, and maybe the next video, we'll probably break down the music videos and what gear we used and what thought process we went through to put this video together, and also how we edited the video, and just all these things. So stay tuned. Make sure you tell a friend about it, because that's the only way we're going to get out there is if you guys spread the word of mouth. Let's get past these stupid algorithms. Let's get past all these stupid Facebook advertisements and putting in money for advertising. So the strongest tool for advertising is word of mouth. So tell a friend to tell a friend. We love you guys. Thank you again for tuning in. This was another episode of The Terrible Reception, and I hope to see you at the next one.
Yes. One. Yeah.